I'll call the Commission Office meeting to order. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Western Commissioner Hosey Blue.
Present.
Eastern Commissioner Bradley Jackson.
Present.
Presiding Commissioner Lynn Morris.
Present. If you all join me with the pledge. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. It's always a great way to start out the morning. So today we have a pretty full agenda, and we have a planning or zoning hearing after this meeting. We need to approve today's agenda. We have no minutes and no financials for today. We're going to keep all the items on consideration in order of what we have here, and I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated.
So moved.
Second that motion, sir.
Okay, thank you. We've got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes. Okay, so the first thing on the agenda today is the maintenance supervisor, Mr. Teague, and we're talking about sewer improvements.
Good morning. We have Jacob Dean here with Great River, who put out the bid for us for the jail sewer improvements. We did receive one bid. And what is their name? Okay.
It is KCI Engineering.
KCI Engineering submitted the bid. The base construction bid cost was $776,500. There is a variance allowed there for removing limestone rock if they find it, and a not to exceed price of $87,500, which makes the total $864,000. We were expecting somewhere between $750,000 and $1 million when we first started this project. So there is some language changes that Jacob has had to make this project work, and I'll let him go over that with you.
Sure. As far as the contractor, I do have a review letter that Great River's prepared, just reviewing their bid packet, and then kind of some supplementary documents to that. I also have the notice of award. If you're ready to sign that today, that just authorizes the contractor or notifies them that they award the project, and then they'll start preparing their construction contract documents, the bonding, and all that kind of stuff, which is the critical part of meeting that ARPA deadline. So once he prepares all that, we can get those signed before the end of the year, and we'll be ready, and we'll check that box, and we'll be done. We'll meet that deadline. I think we're on pace to definitely make that happen. As far as the contract changes that he's talking about, or language changes, I've kind of, I was handed this project, and so going through it, I think we're at a good checkpoint to reevaluate a couple things. We encountered some obstacles through the design and bidding phase. So with that, I've adjusted my fee on those two parts just by increasing about $6,000, $6,600. However, I did also reevaluate the construction phase services. What I did there is I switched that to hourly, not to exceed. That way you only use us for what you need. And we'll work with Richard and the jail and the city all to make sure that happens, and that's also not to exceed that hourly. As far as one thing that we changed during bidding to get contractors more interested is we extended that bidding period. Originally we had a pretty short construction period. We extended that to get more interest, lower the bid, and with that does change some language for our involvement during the construction phase, over the course of that duration. So this amendment here explains all of that. As I said, the design phases goes up by $6,000. Construction goes up just by our inspection fees of $41,000. So all in all, it's about $47,000 that is an increase. However, like I said, that construction is strictly hourly, so you only use for what you need.
Okay, very good. Any comments or questions?
I just am glad we're to a point to get this issue taken care of. But I have no questions with regards to
I have no questions, sir.
I want to just thank you for stepping in and finishing the project.
Of course.
And we're live on YouTube, so, and people are going to be watching this later on if they can't watch it live today. And we have some people here, citizens here, but just very quickly, Richard, you know, that's a lot of money. We're talking about sewer, a sewer improvement, a sewer problem that we have over at the jail. So in 5 minutes or so, can we just bring people up to date of why the county is spending almost $1 million on a sewer project for the jail over
Sure.
there?
So when this building, the Justice Center and the jail was built, the sub pump grinder that is in there is at a level which only allows a couple of minutes or a few inches of overflow, which backs up into the sheriff's locker rooms. They come up, so sewage, raw sewage will flood the locker rooms and going out into the main area where our officers work, eventually even making it up to the public area. We've had as much as 4 inches of raw sewage in that building numerous times over the last 20 years. This can be from a pump that's shorted out. This can be, last time it was a relay. Last time I was involved in it, most of the times the previous commissions, and I wasn't here, had taken care of those other issues, but my understanding has been $50,000 to $70,000 every time that's happened. So we're looking at just a word of mouth. I don't have the actual numbers, but probably $400,000 worth of damage over the last 20 years. Not to mention the safety issues with C. diff and other bacteria and fungus that causes that, mold. We have to pay to have that all cleaned up. New flooring put in. Sheetrock has to be cut and replaced. Some of the metal studs had to be pulled out because of rust. So this is a health issue for our employees and our citizens. It's also a safety issue for the building, the construction of the building, the damage it does. And we can't continue to move forward with this, putting our staff in danger, because we have to have this cleaned up. They cannot work in that environment. And it's very expensive every time.
Yeah, you know, we, probably all of us, all the commissioners have gone over there to see what it looks like after those things happen, and very, very bad. And then I look later on, months later on, we spent a lot of money, and you got it making the offices look good again, but very bad in between all those weeks that where the people are displaced from their offices, and I do think it's a health hazard. So, and where's the money coming from for the public to know?
Oh, we have the emergency fund, and Amy Dent can answer that, but building improvements fund, I think, is taking part of this.
Yeah.
The sheriff's also, the ARPA money, he had got a grant to do improvements in the jail itself, but we had to use matching funds, so the county's putting in this money, and that satisfies that grant requirement on the sheriff's side.
Yeah. So from what we've been told, and I believe it, is that this will solve that problem, and going forward, and then everyone from now on will not have to deal with that anymore. Right. And so I do appreciate that. I appreciate the engineering company. I appreciate Richard and his crew. And so I would entertain a motion to approve this bid.
I will make that motion.
Second the motion, sir.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's a good start. And when will that start, and when is the final completion projected?
It'll start early part of next year, between January and March, and then it'll be about a 4 to 5 construction period from there. So
Okay.
we're looking somewhere late summer.
Okay, all right. Well, it's been a process.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Ms. Kim and Supervisor Teague.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So this is a contract renewal for ITV 2023-7, elevator preventative maintenance and repair. We awarded this last year to Kone. We originally last year received 3 proposals, but Kone was the lowest and best price. They have requested a 3.5% increase, which was within their original bid last year. And they base the renewal prices on increases of the base mechanic rate change, their employee benefits costs, and material costs. So I believe Mr. Teague is happy with Kone.
Yes, they have fixed some issues, long-standing issues we've had with our previous company. Those have all been addressed and corrected, and also the issues that we had with the Missouri Department of Public Safety, those issues have been addressed, and very, very happy with this company.
So we just ask, our recommendation is renew the contract with Kone.
Any comment or questions?
No, I think after 2 weeks of no excuse absentee voting, this elevator in this building's gotten a lot of use, so it's probably a good thing to have somebody ready to take a look. I think they pushed the button on the 3rd floor so many times that it's starting to fall off.
Yeah, we've replaced it this week and found another damaged one in the elevator, so it's on order.
Okay, perfect, perfect.
Are we using masking tape to hold it?
No, we're not there yet.
That's what I do at home, so just until you get it fixed. Okay, no, I tell you what, no, I think the elevator got probably a supreme test. I mean, as many people went up and down that elevator and pushing buttons. I think it's amazing, so I'm glad we've got a company now that we like and work with. So I'd take a motion to approve this bid.
I'll make that motion, sir.
Renewal bid. Okay.
Second.
Okay, got a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. It passes. Thank you, guys. The next item on the agenda is again Ms. Kim, and we're talking about a,
Shredding.
yep.
So what this is, we are currently using the state of Missouri contract for our shredding services. It's not for all departments, but it's for a good majority of them. The auditor, the collector, the county clerk, employee services, juvenile prosecutor's office, and public admin is currently using Big Bear Shredding, that name, Big Bear Shredding, but we're using the state of Missouri contract. And so we would like to continue with that. So this is the first renewal.
Was there an increase on that?
There was an increase. It went from $63 to $66
Okay.
every 8 weeks they pick up.
Okay, no. All righty. I think that's an important renewal contract, so I would ask for a motion to approve this renewal contract.
So moved.
Second the motion, sir.
Thank you. We have a second motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye, so it passes. Okay, next item on the agenda is the Deputy Director, Emergency Services.
Good morning.
Morning,
sir. I want to thank you for the sewage thing. We, as you know, we're a tenant in the basement over at the Justice Center, and 24/7, 365, we operate in there too. We've experienced some problems with that over the years, so that will be very beneficial to Christian County Emergency Services 911.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm here actually to facilitate a right-of-way easement or utility easement. I'm not sure which it is legally, but the paperwork says right-of-way easement for the road and bridge yard at Nixa. Facilitate the agreement between Ozark Electric and the county. As you know, we have a tower location for our 911 radio system there. With the upgrade, public safety upgrade to the statewide system, we had to place a new electrical connection there. We discovered through that process that the first electrical connection placed somewhere back in 2015 was through the city of Nixa Utilities, and it should have been through Ozark Electric due to the jurisdiction. So we've gone through the process and worked through with Ozark Electric to run a new electrical line there. But for them to do the actual hookup, they need an easement to be able to work on the line. We provided you a map that Ozark Electric provided of where the line runs. It runs from the center pole in the yard. I want to say it's about 200 feet, 250 feet, I think, across the yard. It's underneath, obviously underneath. We had it drilled out to put it in. We didn't trench it. And so what they need is just an easement to access it in the event they need maintenance to it.
Okay, any comment or questions on that?
This causes no issue with the road department?
No.
Perfect.
Yeah, we try to minimize that. we didn't trench, we actually went with an underground drilling installation, so we didn't want to tear up the yard and cause disruption. So I don't think it caused any disruption at all to you folks when we did it. So it's all in place. It just needs, for us to actually hook the electric up, we need this easement, or they're asking for this easement for the county, Ozark Electric.
Okay. Any comment or questions on that?
No, sir.
Okay, I think that's another good project that we need to approve. Need a motion?
Make that motion, sir.
I'll second it.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
All righty, the next item on the agenda is our county engineer, Ms. Beals.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Last week, we had a bid opening at the Great River Engineering for two of our ARPA stormwater projects, Green Road and Parchcorn Road. They were bid together. We had two bidders for those projects, Hunter Chase and AT Urban, which we have done work with both groups in the past. Hunter Chase was the low bidder at $465,000. The main difference between the two bids was the cost of the concrete. So Hunter Chase had a better, I don't know if they see it as better, but better for the county price on their concrete, so that's why they were low bidder. So there's a recommendation of award and a notice of award that you'll see in there for $465,000 for the combination projects of the Green Road improvements and the Parchcorn Road improvements, which are both ARPA stormwater projects. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay.
Not necessarily a question, just a comment. That's a large difference based off basically one line item. If you track through the bid specs, they're back and forth to that one line item, and so it seems like maybe a mathematical error more than anything to me as a layman. But
It's not. Both groups were present at the bid opening, and Hunter Chase has verified that they will stand by their price. So we're good to go.
There we go. That's a big difference.
It's a pleasant difference.
Well, yes, in our favor, it's always nice to have.
Yeah. If they hadn't been present, I would be a little worried about the award, but I feel comfortable, and we've done a lot of work with them in the past. So.
Sure.
Mr. Blue, do you have any comment?
No, sir. I'm pleased with it.
Well, Ms. Miranda, let me ask you this. So, I mean, these two projects, obviously, the history is we really need to do something there. And so this is going to be great that we're spending this ARPA money to do that. And just very quickly, where are we at on all the other ARPA projects? We're divided into 4 sections of the county. Do we have to have bids on those before the end of this year? Or?
We do. So for the remaining projects that are in the Findlay area, which is the Spring Hill project and the Rochester Road project. On Spring Hill, we're just waiting to get our Army Corps permit, which we are hoping to receive any day. That will go out to bid. Rochester, we're still waiting on one more resident with some right-of-way concerns. We hope to wrap that up soon. The Sawmill Road project, which is in a different district, is ready to be bid. And I think that takes care of everything. So the remaining projects that we have are design only, like the Dry Hollow Bridge. So that has been obligated because it's design only, so it can carry on. And then we have some projects in the James River area that Olson is working on that are design only from this point. So those have been obligated.
So we're going to be good.
I think we're going to be very good with our ARPA.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Well, these are two really important projects that we've continued to have a lot of problems and cost a lot of money, and so hopefully this will alleviate a lot of that.
I think it will.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And tell your road crew, great job again with all the flooding and things that went on.
Yeah, there's a lot of rain, especially on the east side of the county. A lot of rain.
East side had a lot more than the west side.
Yep.
All righty. I'll take a motion to
Move to award the bid to Hunter Chase.
Yes.
And I would second that motion, sir.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, the next item is the Commission Holiday 2025 schedule. And just to kind of briefly go over that, we had a little confusion, I think it was last week, on our schedule. So basically, this schedule is very similar to last year's county holiday schedule. What we have tried to do is incorporate state holidays, federal holidays, and then kind of look and see what makes sense for this county. So if there's a holiday on a Thursday or Wednesday or something like that, then we have in the past, because, so like this year, Thanksgiving is on Thursday. And so if Thanksgiving's on Thursday, the courts are probably not going to work on Friday. There'll be no cases on Friday. But we don't always know right now at this time of year what the courts will do, because the Missouri Supreme Court works with Judge Johnson and tells the courts in the state of Missouri when they're going to take off. So this is our calendar. There's 15 holidays, same as last year, and that may sound like a lot to a lot of people, but I would defend that by saying that to me, this is one of the things that we can offer our 250 employees in this county as a benefit, and not cut services whatsoever, and help to retain employees and reward employees. So I feel very comfortable with this schedule. This is a schedule that we've had similar to the last 2 years, and I think it's important to improve this calendar. So, any discussion?
I make a motion that we approve the calendar as printed.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Oh, it passes. Okay, very good. The next item on the agenda is discussion and possible vote on a COLA increase. I was hoping that Ms. Dent would be here, our auditor, but I do want to take some time to make some comments, and I really appreciate the fact that Ms. Dent did give us some numbers. As you know, we approved 2.5% COLA, and I'm appreciative of that. At one time in the last few months, there was a thought that we might not be able to offer anything for our employees for next year. Sales tax was down, lots of things, expected high increases in healthcare costs, premiums, just a lot of negatives. And we kind of rebounded. So we've had a rebound in sales tax the last 3 months. And we usually have the fourth quarter being our best sales tax quarter. You just kind of have to wait and see what the weather's going to be like, roads every day and stuff like that. But usually that's the best. And then Miss Amber, our HR director, was able to do some really very good negotiations with our insurance carrier, and we were staring at a 14% increase, and we got it down to 4.5%. So that's able to free up some more money. But I do appreciate, because it takes time. It takes time for people to come up with numbers and cranking these numbers out. So Ms. Dent came up with, if we took 2.5% and we just added 0.5% more. And the reason why I never asked for 0.5% more to begin with was because once I found out we were going to get 2.5%, I was just happy to get 2.5% for our employees. Most of our employees, out of that 250 employees, they're not going to get a raise this year because of the way we do our matrix. I'm not saying the matrix is wrong. The matrix is right. But we do know that inflation's been more than 2.5% this year. And I don't care what CPI says. We can talk all day about how CPI is really calculated. The state of Missouri has given the governor has given the state employees a 3.5% increase. Some of the employees that work over in the court and court buildings and things like that, there are some state employees mixed in with our county employees. And I, for a lot of reasons, would love to be able to afford to give an additional 0.5% to make it 3% COLA this year for our employees. When I first came here in 2020, first thing I did the very first day was talk to Miss Amber, our HR director, and the biggest problem in the county at that time, I think it still is today, is retaining good employees. We hire good people, we train them, and then a year or two later, they leave for $1, $2, $3 more an hour. You can't blame them. It's not their fault. But we don't want that to happen. So, it's always my priority to do two things. One is to always provide services for the county, and make sure every citizen's taken care of. And the second thing is, we can't provide those services if we don't have employees, and we got to take care of our employees. So
I
it's
believe
a
our
lot.
employee service director had a question
Yeah,
or
okay.
a comment.
Yes.
That might have been the case, but we are not. We are very competitive now that we
Yeah, I think
salary matrix.
you're right. So I need to brag about that. I think that we, over 4 years, have become competitive. But here's the problem. If you drop the ball, you're going to be behind again. And my thought is, we need to take care of our employees as much as we can afford. That's all we can do. If we can't afford it, we can't afford it. But I'll just give some numbers now, and then we'll wind this up. So the wages would be about $58,901. Benefits would cost us $13,391. Additional pay, that would be like if they did some overtime or something like that, might cost us another $14.80. It actually would be an increase of about $5.84 a week per employee. And I do think, Ms. Amber, you may be able to help me with this, because I've talked to some other office holders. Some office holders' payroll is not out of the general revenue where we're paying our employees. Some of them are out of their own. Like Danny was trying to explain to me in the assessor's office that part of his payroll is not out of this same.
Well, that's more of an Amy question. I
Yeah.
know that different elected officials do have different funding and how they're. I can tell them what they should make and give parameters, but I don't absolutely know the backside of it.
Yeah.
That would be, but yes, I know that there's like the law enforcement fund and the assessor. There are different funds that we pay salaries out of.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure if this, and again, I'm not knocking anyone, but I'm just saying that I do believe that there are some, if this is a total of every employee, that may not be exactly right. And, but
No, I think it'd be the cost. You just don't know what cost center they're coming from.
where the cost, well, it may not be coming from the,
I think it's the cost.
Okay.
That's the amount of employees with
Okay.
across the board another 0.5%.
okay. Well, I will stop there, but it's up to the other two commissioners to help make this decision. I don't think any of us up here would ever try to jeopardize our cash flow and our balance of our safety funds. You just heard what we were able to do with a sewer problem that we've been having for 3 or 4 years, well, actually for more years than that, but just since I've been here, and we're just finally next year going to get that fixed. But we had emergency funds to pay for that, and this county is stable. We have a great balance of emergency funds and things like that. So I would just love to be able to give the employees just a little bit more, if we can, if people want to. So I would entertain discussion first, and then see if we can get a motion in a second.
I am really a fan of numbers that are attached to something that can be calculated very quickly and easily. I'm very thankful for the grid, the salary grid that we have for that reason. We don't come up every year and it's like, well, we think these ought to get these, and we've had that here, even in my 8 years. So I really am so appreciative of Ms. Amber and the work that's gone into that. On the COLA increase, my own opinion as of this moment, which is subject to change, is that it ought to be attached to something. And I know, Mr. Morris, that you said you're not a fan of the CPI as being that, but if we don't attach it to something, then we are somewhat at the whim of whoever's on the commission each year, kind of pulling a number out of the air. So, let's go to 3.5, let's go to 4, let's go to 2, and it's just like, why? And so I like an answer to the why. So, and also, unless I'm mistaken, and I think our auditor recommended the 2.5, and I give some fairly strong credence to her on that matter. So at the moment, I would probably lean toward the 2.5. But I've not heard Mr. Jackson yet, and he can be very wise.
Well, thank you. My opinion is very similar to yours. I believe in employee retention. I believe in taking care of our employees. A great workforce is probably the best asset you could ever possibly have in an organization. I know that training employees is one of the largest expenses you can ever have in your organization, so having that stable workforce through whatever is highly beneficial. Again, I kind of believe in the math, and if the advice or whatever is based off the CPI and it comes back at 2 point something, and we go up to the 2.5 just for the sake of using round numbers, then I think we're following the math at that point in time. To go above and beyond because we've found a savings somewhere, I don't necessarily think is horrible, but at the same time, we've forsaken the math and we're going with emotion, maybe, and we're mirroring, to an extent, we're mirroring what the state is doing. If the state is giving a 3.5%, and we were, following the math at 2.5, and we go to 3, what's their justification for going to 3.5? Maybe the revenue stream is a higher level of growth than what ours had been. I think that we've noticed over the years that the state's budget is continuously growing at a more rapid pace than cities and counties throughout the state. So that may be their justification. So I'm kind of torn here. I like to follow the math, and I like to have justification based off of you've heard me say a million times in here, a free man shall be governed by laws and not the whims of men. And I like following the math is the law, or having at least some kind of policy in place that we're constantly following and we're not basing our decisions off emotions. At the same time, taking care of our employees is a huge thing. I want to make sure that they're taken care of, and I appreciate the work of our Human Resources Department, Employee Services Department, that they've gone out and they've been able to find that cost savings for our county, which helps us out. What I don't know necessarily is what that cost savings is in a mathematical number compared to the extra 0.5%. So, and I think she's raising her hand that she has an answer for that.
I'd like to clarify, the cost to the county went from 13.9% to 4.5%. There is still going to be a cost pushed to the employee for their dependents if they choose the Mercy plan of 13.9%. If they choose the Cox plan, it will be 4.5%. So there, instead of having the 3 plans, we now have 6 plans. But the cost to the county will be significantly lowered. It will be more than what is being presented. The savings will be more. However, that's on a full, we're running these numbers on the mindset that everybody has insurance, and that is not the case either.
Right.
She ran the numbers showing what the increased cost would be across the board for, but not everybody has them. I'm giving it to you like everybody would too, so the costs are not accurate. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yes.
I'm not a numbers person, so.
You're doing well. Yes, ma'am.
Well, she is a numbers person, so let's see what she has to say.
Regarding tying to the CPI, I would make sure that you're taking into account whether the county has kept up with the CPI
That's true.
as well.
So what'd you say?
I'd like you to take into account if the county has kept up with the CPI, because if we have not, like if you take it year by year basis, the employees could be losing. So if you take like the average over a 5-year period or something and see if we've kept up with it and keep doing that annually, you might be able to come up with a more applicable number to apply to employees than just starting at 0 every year. Because if you haven't kept up, you might need to give more than the CPI to bring people up. But it'll also help you, if you've been giving more than the CPI, that'll help you make a decision as well. But I think year by year is a little, it's not as accurate as it could be.
Well, and I want to say this too, because I appreciate Commissioner Blue and Commissioner Jackson on your comments and what you said. I just want to clarify one thing. I'm not against CPI. You got to have some kind of standard, and CPI is something that we've used in all governments, and lots of people, businesses use it, so it's something that you use. However, it's a little bit flawed in some cases, especially when you've had high inflation over the last 2 years, because they're averaging prices of steel, aluminum, other big products that all of us people in this room and all our county employees aren't interested in the price of steel and aluminum and some of these things that affect CPI and stuff like
You
that.
can get a CPI that's just food and energy.
Well, I don't know if that's the CPI. That would be interesting
I'm
to
not
see.
sure, but-
But I think people in Christian County are involved. They're concerned about the cost of eggs, cost of bread, milk, gasoline, energy costs, utilities, things like that. They're not interested in some of the things that average into CPI. So I'm just saying that should be something you always use as a standard to look at. But if we don't, I think we need to go ahead and kind of close this up. But if we don't feel comfortable, we don't feel comfortable. And I am just happy with the 2.5 for the employees if that's all we can do.
And I appreciate, Miranda, what you shared, and I'm hearing that again, that could be a justification for doing something a little different because we had not done so in the last 3 or 4 years. Problem is, at the moment, I don't have that information as to know whether we did or did not. But more to the point for me is, I'm coming back to you, Ms. Amber, as you look at what we are compensating our employees across the board from your perspective, do I understand you to say that you think that we are in a competitive place with other similar organizations, etc.?
At this point, I felt that we were. Any time that you do a COLA, it automatically shifts the matrix anyway.
Right.
So it will continue to be that way, and then every other year we'll check it. I will note that Missouri passed the minimum wage increase, and while it does not affect governments, as they say, does not affect, it still will, because we will still have to be a percentage over that for our starting rate. So I would have to if you bring it up now, it's going to be less I'd have to present you to bring up next year. I mean, it's just going to be it is what it is, because if you don't do it, there's potentially, I will bring the matrix back for 2026 to be adjusted.
And when does that new minimum wage thing begin, even though it's
January 2025.
Okay, but you're saying we don't have to, allegedly at least don't have to immediately do that, but we'll be impacted by it.
Government is not mandated to do that because the way that it was written, they eliminated government and schools from it. That doesn't mean we won't compete with it. However, our lowest entry-level person across the board is still going to be over. I will shift it to be a little bit higher for 2026, but not for 2025.
So will it affect us in 2025 in terms of getting and retaining employees if the rest of the economy that's non-governmental is getting an increase starting in January, and then we'd be waiting till a year later, right?
Yes, and that's because of the timing too. I can't shift the entire budget with outside of COLA. So that does come into play, I guess. I didn't realize. If you do hire, it will close that gap a little bit more.
That argument holds some persuasiveness to me. What are you thinking, Bradley?
Well, I think that we run into this, and I know that dealing with the competitive nature of the marketplace, specifically in my past experience dealing with law enforcement officers. Our law enforcement officers in the city of Ozark may have been $1 an hour below the average of the area, so we raise pay to be competitive to find the best possible law enforcement officers, right?
Right.
We raise pay by $1.50, and within a year and a half, we're back at the bottom again. It's constantly shifting, and so we want to maintain our good employees, and we want to maintain a competitive atmosphere and reward the employees. But again, I think we have to have some solid justification. Even if we start in January of 2025 and we build a solid justification of how we're going to review, if it's going to a CPI based off energy and groceries versus a nationwide CPI based off all goods, and we start working from that. If we go back in time a little bit to see where we've been over the past 4 or 5 years, to make sure that we're current, so that if we're applying a CPI of 1.5, then we're totally accurate. I take a lot of consideration to the comments made by Ms. Beatles, because I think that she's exactly right. If you're going off emotion with no justification from 5 years back, we still may be too low. So I think it's hard to make a decision, and here we are. I think we've got the auditor in a stressed position right now, because there's a lot of work to get done to get this put forward, so the budget can be finalized on her timeline, or the mandated timeline. So I think that we have to make a decision what it is. We did agree to the 2.5, but there is the ability to go to 3. Is that the best thing for the organization in taking care of our employees? It might be, but I still think we have to build some kind of foundation working from henceforward, and that way we can take the emotion out of it. It's defined, and everybody knows what to expect. Sure.
And it seems to me that there's been times in my tenure here that we've actually gone above the CPI, gave pretty healthy increases of whatever. I'm saying that to say, if we look back over the last 3 years and find out, well, yeah, we actually have done better, let's lower it to 2%, that would not fly well. So it's like we'll use the past if it moves us up, but we sure don't want to use the past if it causes us to stagnate or be less. It's the cost of living. Not that I'm expecting as consumer price index to decrease in the foreseeable future. So I'm really truly able to go either direction on this. I think I will still probably hold to the 2.5, because otherwise I think we somewhat negate the work of our human resources or employee services and Amy Dent by us doing that unilaterally, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So I probably still lean toward the 2.5, but I appreciate our employees, and I have no problem with them getting an increase. I just want to feel like it's something that next year we won't be once again kind of reinventing the wheel and on that. So what do you say, Mr. Bradley?
I agree. They're our greatest asset. if you have experts in the field and the experts bring forward their recommendation and you go against it, then why are they there? I think is, kind of my opinion, similar to what you're saying. This was brought forward as what we could do, what we could handle, what we could justify. There's still a lot of services that are out there in the community that we need to take care of, our citizens that we need to take care of with whatever projects and stuff. We got to look out for them as well. So it's kind of a tough position to be in. I want to take care of every single employee, and I want to take care of every single citizen.
Whoa.
And that makes for difficult decisions. But I would I think the actual hit to the budget, $75,000, if I'm remembering correctly,
In that range.
for the to go to 3%.
Let me say one more thing too. So I appreciate all this discussion. This is what we should do. Unfortunately, we can't discuss things all the time unless we have a public meeting. So I'd just soon have a public meeting every day where we can discuss things. And that way we could actually solve problems. But one of the things, in my 43 years of running my pharmacy business, here's what happens when the federal government or the state mandates a minimum wage. And we started out with minimum wages $4 and $5 and $6, and now it's up to $13.90 starting in January. Well, huh?
$13.75.
Oh, $13.25. $13.25.
75.
And then it goes up. It goes up after that. So here's what happens with mandated minimum wages. These little businesses out there, the mom and pop businesses, they're going to have a hard time. Okay, they're already having a hard time. And so they're going to continue to have a worse time, and the big guys, the big box stores, if they're not paying them that now, they can afford to pay it. But to be competitive, somebody will offer $1 more than that, and so it starts to get up. I do fear that we won't be in line next year with this minimum wage that was passed, but we don't know. Nobody knows until it happens. But I'm happy either way. I think we need to go ahead and close this matter. If no motion is made, then we've had great discussion. I'm satisfied. I'm not as satisfied as I would be, but I'm satisfied. We've had great discussion. So if you guys don't want to make a motion,
You have a comment?
This is not my decision. We are going to push off. Employees, no matter what, if they are having dependents or they're doing a buy-up, they're getting a 4.5% increase minimum on their insurance, and it could go up to the 13.9. Next year, minimum wage going to $13.75 will increase. Our last person to keep a dollar amount over that will need to go up 9% to match that across the board on the matrix. I plan to do that over time next year, because sitting here today, right now, I can tell you we're competitive. Everybody else is having these conversations too. I cannot tell you we will be competitive in January 2025. And that's my job. That'll be my job to continue to work those and, go forward. If you do the 3% today, it does close that gap. That's all. But I don't want to sway you. I'm just trying to give you the information. You got to put yourself in. My job is to sit here and tell you what the employee side is, while also telling you what is the best interest for our taxpayers' money. So I am in between. I would probably lean towards the 3, but again, I think 2.5 is. I am not talking about a giant difference here.
Sure.
But now I also feel the employees are going to think, why did we not?
Kelly?
Well, like she said, I'm not here to tell you anything, but just because I hear what is said in the offices, I hear what's said in my office, And in this building, it's not going to make a difference. In that building over there, you've got, part of your employees are going to get a 3.5% interest because they're paid by the state, and part of them at 2.5%, and there's going to be, well, how come they got a whole % more than we did? Why can't we keep up with them? It may not be right comparing your salaries to the person sitting next to you or the office, across the hall for you, but that will be noticed by the employees that part of them got a whole % more. I mean, our employees are smart. We've got smart people here.
Sure.
They're going to figure that out real quick.
Amber, did you have one more comment?
Yes, my thought is, people should not really compare themselves salary-wise to anybody else, because everybody has a different job and everybody has a different matrix.
Sure.
That's why we built it. However, when you do across-the-board things like that, that's when they will take notice of it, because it's affecting everyone. But those offices are very aware that their benefits are different. State benefits are different from county benefits. That's a known thing. More along the lines of, if I'm an employee listening to this meeting, I know I'm going to get an increase on my insurance, and I haven't rolled it out yet, so they don't know exactly what it's going to be. But we're also talking about what they're going to be increased versus what we're going to increase on them. So.
But now, if they go with Cox, the increase is not there, am I correct?
The other way
It's
around.
4.5% increase versus
With
the
Cox.
13.9.
Okay, all right. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the 3%. And my reasoning for that is, we're going to have to adjust next year anyway, and this can cushion, in my estimation, the adjustment that will have to be made with that. I think the passing of that amendment or proposition, which was, what was it? Proposition. I think it simply changes the playing field. And so even though I started out at a different place, I'm going to go ahead and make the motion that we do go ahead with the 3%.
Okay, we've got a motion.
And I had run a couple of little numbers here, so overall, the hit to the budget is not as great.
No.
There is a cost savings to offset. I still want to, rolling into 2025, do some historical data.
Absolutely.
So that we don't run into the same thing next year, and create, hopefully with the Employee Services Division, a plan of action that we just know what we're doing and we know where we're going based off mathematical equations and not emotions. Sitting here having this conversation, any employee that's watching, they're wondering whether or not they're worth 0.5% because we're having this conversation, and they're most definitely worth 0.5%. Maybe we should put a ballot initiative together next year that everybody makes $50 an hour, and we'll see if people will pass that. Everybody will be rich then, Well, I think it's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing when you put a ballot initiative together for people to give themselves a pay increase, because they think about their bottom line, but they don't think about the cost of everything else that's going to bypass that increase. I'm going to make an extra $1 an hour, but it's going to cost me an extra $20 an hour just to live. So I think that's a dangerous thing that we've allowed to happen in this past election cycle. That's not the first time we've done it. So I would second your motion based off the figures I just ran.
Okay, so very good discussion. We've got a motion and a second, and all in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes 3-0. Thank you. Thank you. Good discussion. This is what we should be doing all along. And I don't really think this was made emotionally a decision. I think we thought it out, we talked about it, and we made a decision. So thank you. So the last item on the agenda before we start rezoning is communications. I do have a few communications. We'll see if other commissioners or anybody else has communications. We will be closed next Monday for Veterans Day, so I think our signs are getting ready to go up. They're already up, and we'll put that on our website and everything like that. For all the veterans, enjoy your Veterans Day. We should be celebrating Veterans Day every day of the year, not just one day of the year. But Next week, our commission meetings are regular schedule. Is that right? So we got that. Okay, any other communications that we need to make to anyone?
I want to simply affirm our county clerk and all of the people that work with her and all of the people that man the polls. It seems to me like we have an awfully good team of people doing that and have managed to stay out of the news pretty well, you know, along the way. But anyway, I think they did a great job, and it was a challenge this year with the no excuse voting. That's something that's going to have to be taken into account, but I think they did exceedingly well, and I just want to make that as a comment.
I will second that. I'll tell you what, I watched from this building right here, this room right here, all those people going up and down the elevator, up and down the steps, and the clerk and all, Miss Maddie, all the people, Miss Erin, all of them did such a great job. And people seem to be in really under control. Security did a great job.
They did.
They did a great job. So let's give them all a hand. You tell everybody back in your office, give them a hand. Okay? So, okay.
I agree with that, and I think that, you know, this was kind of a curveball that I don't think anybody, even in the clerk's office, was anticipating the amount of traffic that was going to be pushing through there. I know our security was not anticipating this, and on behalf of all of them, you know, I think we have got to make sure that we work with the clerk's office to give them every assistance they need so that the next election cycle that we're projecting this kind of traffic flow, if early voting is a thing of the future that we're going to continue to do, that we have an off-site location that can handle all of their needs, and work with the clerk's office to make sure that they have whatever they need to make sure that can happen, because this was a little bit of a challenge, you know, with people happening, that we got to the point where we were only allowing so many in at a time, and we had a lot of people that were out on the sidewalk and in the rain, and they wanted to, you know, exercise their American freedom to choose leadership, and anything that we can do to assist the clerk's office to make that. And I heard no complaints.
No.
People stand in the rain for 20-30 minutes and they still didn't complain about it. Because they were happy to be able to be part of that process. So if we can make that even more efficient by working with the clerk's office, I think we need to be working on that plan with them.
Sure. When they opened up the X Center in Nixa, it changed everything in a positive way, although it was still very busy here. But my wife and I voted there, and their setup was much more convenient for the citizens, because it was all on the ground floor level, and you entered one door and out the other, and so forth. So we'll see, if we do this again, we'll see more of those off-site locations. It's just going to take some good advanced planning, and I know that. All right, I think I'm through, Mr. Wilson.
All righty. Then we don't need to adjourn. We'll just
correct.
Start the. Okay, we're going to go ahead and recess, and then we will start at 10 o'clock our rezoning hearings. Thank you all for coming today.
Yes, thank you all.
Good meeting. just a little bit past 10 o'clock today, and we've got rezoning cases. And Mr. Scott, I will give you the floor.
Get set up here. All right, our first case today is 2024-0243. The applicant is Frank Hilton. The current zoning on the property is A1 agricultural. The request is to rezone to AR agricultural residential. The second page will show you a zoomed out site of what we're looking at here. The surrounding land uses are almost entirely agricultural and single-family residential. On the third page, the surrounding zonings are R1, A1, AR, R1, so all agricultural and residential. Next page, the applicant's proposing to change the zoning for about 40 acres. It's 5 tracts in total. It's tracts 1, 2, 3, 1R, and 3R from A1 to AR. Background and history on this parcel. The property that's being considered was subdivided into its current form in 2022. And then the home that's built on tract 1R does have a building permit with us and was constructed in 2018. Otherwise, it's been farmland since then. Our future land use plan does note this as falling in both tiers 2 and 3 of the urban service area with the city of Ozark. Their future land use map does not incorporate this property into that consideration, but it does show single-family residential across Sandstone Road to the west as an appropriate land use. As far as compatibility is concerned, again, it's surrounded by single-family and agricultural uses and zonings. Connectivity, these parcels have connections to Sandstone Road to the west, Summit Road to the south, and then tract 1R is currently accessed by a private easement that's been named Cedarstone Drive. And then both Sandstone and Summit are in the county's Common 1 road district. The next page is the most recent survey on this property that just kind of shows how the property lines were set. The next page there shows the City of Ozark's future land use map. So the big yellow blob to directly to the west they consider residential, and then the brown stuff to the south they consider agricultural. As far as landscaping and buffering, no specific provisions have been offered or would be required for the rezoning. Same thing with building design. Any new construction there would go through the building inspections department. As far as access, again, there's direct frontage to both Summit and Sandstone Road. And then if any new requests for access were made, the county's highway department would be responsible for approving those or making sure they were safe and adjusting them as needed. There are no known public utilities besides electricity at this location. No expected stormwater impacts due to rezoning. If there was any future development or anything like that out here, it would be subject to the county's regulations. No expected groundwater impacts due to rezoning. Floodplain and sinkholes, there is no floodplain mapped on the property, but back on page, I believe it's 3 of the handout, you can see a little orange circle that kind of goes across the road. There's a small amount of sinkhole that catches the west side of the property, but that really shouldn't substantially impact the property's ability to whatever, rezone or subdivide or develop or anything in the future. Really no expected traffic impacts just due to the rezoning. At the planning and zoning hearing, we did have the applicant speak. I apologize, a representative for the applicant speak. They mentioned that the applicant would like to subdivide tract 3R in half. And then Keith Hilton spoke. He claims he is a distant relative of the owner and expressed that he wasn't particularly in favor or against the request, but just wanted to bring up traffic and narrow road conditions along Sandstone Road for future consideration of improvement. as the county continues to grow and potentially develop in the future. No other public comment was made. So at that commission hearing on October 21st, they heard the facts of the case as well as the public input and forwarded a unanimous recommendation of approval for this request to the commission. I can answer any questions you guys have.
Any comments or questions? So let me ask one. So I think that was unanimous that we passed this at the meeting I was at. But one of the things that I think this county has got to consider, start to think about, I spent quite a bit of time talking to Miss Miranda, our county engineer, and I'm very concerned. I think all citizens are concerned. I'm going to use the city of Ozark as an example. We're still live on YouTube, and so for all y'all, there will be a lot of people watching on YouTube or can watch it later on, anytime, night or day. But one of the things we have to be concerned about is when somebody says sandstone's a narrow road, it is. And we're going to have another case today where we've got a narrow road and a one-lane road. And then you're going to add more properties, more homes, more cars, things like that. I don't want to be like this. The city has found themselves in where we have tremendous growth of apartments or homes, but we don't have the infrastructure yet. And they're saying that it may be another 2 years or more before they get the infrastructure in with stoplights and wider roads and better turn lanes and stuff like that. This county does not want to get into this kind of consideration where we have people having wrecks and being drove off the road and things like that. So we all have to work together. I'm not saying we're going to vote this case down, but I mean, I'm just telling you, this is something we need to consider. Even when I'm gone, we better start thinking about everybody's moving out. They're moving out because there's not very many lots left inside the city limits. And a lot of people want to live outside anyway. So it's going to be a tough job. You're doing a great job, but it's going to be a tough job for everybody to make sure that we keep up with road improvements, or we make the developer do it, or I mean, because I don't think this county has enough money to fix all the roads when everybody says, well, that's a one-lane road, but we're going to approve 8 or 10 more homes, and then who's going to pay for that road? And who's going to pay for the repairs later on as it goes on? Just a comment right now to kind of get this started, because we've got some cases that I'm concerned about just keeping up and having a standard where we don't have some of the problems that I see driving inside the city limits of Ozark. So, okay?
Yep, understand.
Any other comments or questions?
Just, so 3R is the request to split in half, correct?
Potentially. We don't have that request at this time,
Okay.
but that's what they stated they may do.
In the future?
Yeah.
Is that bottom right-hand corner, is that just a depression, or is that when the aerial was taken, it looks as if there was standing water there potentially? Is it just a low spot that was holding some water potentially?
I would suspect, I mean, our mapping's not showing floodplain or sinkhole there, so.
Frank
Frank.
That's a lifelong resident and owner of the property. It's actually a pretty large pond.
Okay.
It's been there for all my life, basically.
Okay. It's just showing up different than the pond at the house.
Yeah, the pond in front of the house is just a tiny little area. That is a larger pond.
Okay.
I remember seeing it cleaned out as a kid in the 50s, and I cleaned it out once probably 20 years ago. But it's a nice pond, holds water, etc. But
That was the only, I was just curious based off that request to split that doesn't leave much of that lot if it gets split, but anyway, that's the only thing I had, nothing further.
Okay. I would entertain.
I'd make a motion to
Okay.
approve.
I second that motion, sir.
Great, we got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, passes. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, next case.
Either way.
The last. That's
We can do it either way. That's just how the agenda's set up, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so this is a request for zoning change. And it's for two properties. And the case numbers are 2024-0258 and 0259. This is a county-initiated correction to the zoning map. Currently, both of these properties are zoned R1, and our proposal is that they be corrected to be M1 light manufacturing. They're located in C&K Corners, which is a commercial development in Nixa that's been there for a very long time. We're talking about lots 15 and 16. On the map enclosed, you can see there's surrounding land uses, which include various light manufacturing and commercial uses. And actually, the Walmart Supercenter is located just to the south. I've enclosed a zoning map, which, as you can see, we've got a pretty uniform collection of M1, the blue uses, and then we've got this 2 lots that are zoned residentially. So we're recommending this change in zoning because they were inadvertently assigned the wrong classification when the county adopted its first zoning map back in 2010. Back at that time, we were tasked with assigning zoning classifications for every parcel in the county, and we're talking about 560 square miles. We did the best we could, and had no illusions that there would be some things that weren't exactly perfect. And as time goes on, we're collecting more and more of those. Incidentally, I had a conversation with Kent Morse, the planning director, for a very long time in Greene County a couple years back, and they of course have had planning and zoning there for a very long time, and we discussed this issue, and he said we still find things. So it's just the nature of the beast. So moving forward, as far as our land use plan goes, our generalized future land use map does designate this area as being within a major transportation corridor. It's right there near 160, and is generally viewed as appropriate for commercial and manufacturing uses. As far as compatibility goes, as you saw, it is surrounded and within an area that's filled with C2 and M1 uses. The property itself has existing and established transportation connectivity. As far as the site goes, we're talking about simply a correction to the map and the zoning here, so there's no provisions for landscaping or buffering involved here. Any future structures that might be built would be subject to the codes administered by our building inspection department. The properties have existing access to the internal roads within C&K Corners, which ultimately connect to Tracker Road near 160. The properties already have utilities in place. Most of the properties there are served by wells and septic systems or approved holding tanks. As far as an environmental impact analysis, just as a result of this rezoning, there's no impact to stormwater anticipated or groundwater, and there are no floodplain or sinkholes mapped in the area. So in this situation, it's very clear that the two subject properties were assigned an incorrect zoning back in 2010. By making this correction to the map, it will allow staff and the present or any future owners of these parcels to apply the county's zoning regulations properly with regard to land use and future development. Back on October 21st at the P&Z Commission hearing, the board reviewed the facts of this case. We took public comment, and the P&Z Commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval of this change in designation to the County Commission. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, any comment or questions?
I do not have any, sir.
So on your nearby zoning map, the two in question are in yellow.
Yep.
The rest of the blue, is that,
That is M1.
okay, so none of this is inside the city limits?
No.
Not a single solitary piece of it?
Nope. The properties to the south are, but no,
Okay. I'm always curious. The city of Nixa does not have a desire for any of this? I know we're making a correction to this map, but...
For them to go through and install public water and sewer at this point.
Is there not water and sewer on any of these? Are they all wells and septics? The gentleman behind you back here is shaking his head. I'd like to...
It has Nixa water, and that's all.
Okay, so it's got city water, but no city sewer.
Right.
No sewer, no curb and gutter.
Okay. So there's your answer why they don't
For
want
them
it.
to take it in there, they're not going to want to spend the money.
Okay. I'm just always a big fan of kind of cleaning up jurisdictional lines when there's a possibility.
That would be nice. But at least it's one solid area as opposed to
True.
all over the place.
I mean, I see no issue here. I would make the motion to, I mean, this error was no one's fault, but basically ours through a contract with an outside agency drawing our maps. So I would make the motion that we clean this error up and approve it.
I would second that motion, sir.
All right, we got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
It passes.
Thank you.
I appreciate Mr. Larson bringing that to our attention, and I appreciate the way the county took care of this matter. So good job. Okay, next case.
Yes, our next case is 2024-0261. The applicant here is Wesley Stewart. The current zoning is A1 agricultural, and the request for a zoning change is to M1 light manufacturing. So the second page there shows the location of the parcel kind of highlighted in a big thick red box at 233 Kentucky Road, south of Ozark. Surrounding existing land uses include Highway 65 to the east, and then single-family residential and agricultural uses on all other sides. The third page will show your surrounding zonings. Directly abutting is all agricultural. There is a little bit of residential there, and there is some commercial to the east of the highway, and then there's also a little bit of C2 that's not shown on the map a bit further south of this location as well. So the applicant's proposing the change in zoning for about a 12.6 acre tract in the county to M1 to be lawfully developed and utilized for a future primary use, which would be acceptable in that M1 district. The property being considered was created by a lot line adjustment recorded in September of 2024, and the property has historically been used as farmland. The Christian County's land use plan does show this is in Tier 3 of the urban service area with the city of Ozark. Again, this is another instance where it's in their USA, but their future land use map doesn't encompass this property and actually falls a bit short. We don't even have an adjacency type situation to look at here with their land use map. And then we did not receive comment from the city on their USA applications for this request. As far as compatibility goes, so again, this is adjacent to other agricultural uses, but it does sit directly west of Highway 65, and there is kind of a mixture of uses on the east side of Highway 65 that includes some commercial stuff, some residential stuff, some churches, and typically when we look at this type of zoning, we think of highway corridors as kind of an area to buffer from that real high intensity use of constant traffic and pollution from cars and things like that, and kind of buffer that away and take a higher intensity and push it down as we move away into more rural and more residential areas. And then also that helps keep traffic flow to the highway rather than running through neighborhoods and things like that. So your next page here shows the City of Ozark's future land use map. They do show residential as appropriate on the east side of everything across the highway, but they don't grab, there's a strip between Selmore Road and Highway 65 that their future land use map is not accounting for there. And then again, once you get west of the highway, they don't account for really anything in that area. As far as connectivity goes, it does have direct frontage along Wyoming Drive, which is the kind of outroad for 65 on the west side of the highway. The nearest access to 65 from this location would be to go north on Wyoming about 800 feet to a bridge. The bridge crosses over to Selmore, and then you're going south to Double E and 65 to catch an on-ramp. If you take Selmore north, you're basically going just up into town, and if you take this road that's off of Wyoming west, it just dumps you back off into the county and really isn't advantageous for anybody to go that way unless you live there or have some very specific reason to go that way. No specific provisions for landscaping or buffering at this time. If the site was developed, it would be subject to the county's regulations, including zoning, permitting, soil and erosion control, stormwater talcs, all that fun stuff. Building design kind of falls into what I just said. Again, nothing specific at this time, but it would be subject to the county's regulations. Access, I kind of mentioned earlier, it does have direct access to Wyoming. That road is administered by MoDOT, so they would need to reach out to the state for any kind of driveway access if they were to develop that site. And then utility services, I do have some GIS layers that have Ozarks and Nix's utilities. And they appear to be anywhere from about 1.5 to 2 miles north of this location. So not practical to get to this site, but electricity is available. No anticipated stormwater impacts. Again, any new development here would be subject to our soil and erosion control regulations. No expected groundwater impacts due to rezoning, and there are no mapped floodplain or sinkholes on this piece of property. Again, we've kind of talked about traffic here. That would be something that we would take into consideration at the time of development, and as I mentioned, the most likely route for any sort of semi or maybe heavier traffic would be to move north across the bridge and come south to get onto 65. So staff comments on this item, something to consider is that rezoning this to M1 does open up a lot of uses here. It also opens up anything that would be allowed in C2 or C1 to be done on this parcel. Our industrial and commercial zoning regs are written as sort of a fallback type use where anything in C1 is allowed in C2, and then those two move to M1, and then those three move to M2. So just careful consideration of potential land uses that could occur at this site and the existing uses that are there and the compatibility of those around one another. Public comments at the planning and zoning hearing. The applicant did speak to his intent to potentially relocate a metal fabrication shop. He mentioned that he currently leases property near the airport and would like to relocate that to Christian County on this piece of property. They also stated that they do live on the property to the south, that they own this kind of whole complex of property that has been kind of split up right around here. The applicant's brother spoke and claims that they suspect they would have less impact on the roadway than the diesel mechanic shop that currently operates south of them and follows the same kind of route to get back to the highway as they would, and there was no other public comment made on this item. We did receive a letter in the last couple of days at our office, and that was included on the front of the presentation for you all. That obviously I did not have time to get included in staff reports or anything, from Roxanne Biddick. She lives on Selmore Road, so she lives across Highway 65 on the other side of the churches that are over there. Her main concerns are just increased traffic in the area, and sorry, I had this all planned out in my head. Yeah, just increased traffic and the increase of kind of commercial uses and applications over here while trying to live in the county. So basically just kind of a non-congruence between land uses. So at the commission hearing on October 21st, they heard the facts of the case as well as the public input that was given, and they did forward a recommendation of approval for this request to the county commission by a vote of 7-1. One person did abstain. They came in late, so they didn't feel it would be appropriate to take a vote without having the full report and details given to them. I can answer any questions on that.
Comments or questions? Yes.
I'm sorry I was not able to attend the October meeting at the planning and zoning because of another situation, but I live in that area. I'm just outside of the circle that has to be informed, and, of the changes, and found out about it through another neighbor. And so I'm probably not as informed as I should be. I plan to do a little bit more investigation on it. I'm not sure what is entailed in doing a metal fabrication facility there. I don't know how that affects, I don't know if they, I think of that and you think that there's a lot of things that may require a lot of water. I don't know about the, how that impacts the environment. I do live on Wyoming Road. That diesel shop has created a lot of large truck traffic, not a lot of traffic, but a lot of large diesel semis coming through. I'm a little concerned about the condition of the overpass. I mean, I don't know anything about overpasses or bridges or anything, but I do know that there are chunks of cement that have already come off of that overpass. And I know because of the residential development that is already occurring out there, that there is a lot more just passenger type traffic through there. So maybe I need to be more informed about what all is entailed with putting in a steel or metal fabrication facility than I am to know maybe some of the other questions I might have. A lot of it's environmental. A lot of it is will it be larger vehicles that are going to continue to be more of coming through that area, because it is agricultural and some residential at this point. And of course, me living out there, I would love to see it stay that way. And now they're talking about, well, that just opens the door for more commercial businesses to come in there, and which might be okay if Wyoming Drive extended down to EE, but now you're having to come through, other areas that are less traveled. The roads aren't as wide. They're fine as they are now, but not as wide as coming through town or however the situation is. So I don't know if somebody can enlighten me on some of that, or if that's not appropriate for this meeting. Those are just some of my comments.
Scott, what kind of comments do you have on that?
I don't know that I have a lot in particular I can offer. Looking at the rezoning, kind of as I mentioned, it should be taken into consideration that any use in the M1, C1, or C2 district would be allowed if this rezoning is approved. So as far as specific design plans or traffic or whatever, I can't speak to what that may look like. Obviously, it would increase if development occurred, but there's a lot of land uses or a lot of things that can happen there if the rezoning is approved. So there's a lot of, you can look at an infinite number of potential scenarios in theory.
But there could be some increased requirements if it's passed too, right?
So any development in the county has to come through the permitting process, and particularly commercial development or industrial development tends to have a little higher standards and thresholds to meet than maybe just someone building a house. So any commercial or industrial development is going to have a lot more hoops to jump through with both our office and the building inspections department, and even to some degree maybe the highway department. Given this is a MoDOT road, they're going to have to work with MoDOT to get approval on new accesses and things like that. So there's a lot of different things that can happen and play out if this is approved. And I do believe the owner is here. He may be able to answer maybe his specific plans better, but it's still important to keep in mind that even if that's what he says he's going to do, he may sell it, he may move on, it may not work out for him at the end of the day, and it opens the door. So just keep that in mind.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Any comment from you?
Our intended use is steel fabrication. As far as noise, we work inside the building. We have far less noise than the highway. I currently live out there, and you hear the traffic all the time. So, as far as the bridge and stuff, prior to me owning it, it was the Cox cattle operation. They ran about 3 times the tonnage of cattle over that Selma Bridge than I would ever currently do. So in terms of the bridge infrastructure, we do structures like that, but I don't see any issues with that once I would have bought the property. Environmentally, we currently live out there and will live out there, and I care about the environment as much as anybody. We have cattle out there now. Nothing that we do has any kind of, all the steel is recycled. We have to recycle it. So there's really nothing that even the gases, like we weld and stuff. By today's regulations, you have to capture. It's really, there's not any, we're not doing any kind of chemical processes. Now, I honestly don't know what M1 allows at his point. If I die or retire in 30 years, who knows what we'll do at that point. So I can't really speak to the full gamut of what M1 allows. I just know in steel fabrication, it's pretty simple. We cut steel, we weld steel, we ship steel, and all the scraps we have in, recycle contracts that we recycle it out to. So,
has there been any information that you're aware of how much noise is extended beyond the building? I know you do work inside, and I understand that. But I also have a sense that metal fabrication can involve some processes that are fairly high decibel processes. Do you know if adjoining properties, are you going to hear that across the road at the places in Selmore, or the homes that are located out in that area? Are they going to be hearing that, during the working days, even though you're inside the building? Do you know that?
Yeah. No. So we fabricate steel. We also erect steel on job sites, and what we do, if you turn the generator on, that would be louder than any machine in our facility. So we use bridge cranes, but they don't make noise. We use, even the brake presses and stuff. They don't everything's hydraulic nowadays, it's not mechanical. So mechanical machines from like the 60s and 70s, sure, those are fairly loud, but that, I don't even think you can legally use that anymore. Everything's hydraulic, so whatever the noise of a hydraulic motor is, which is extremely low, I would just say that a job site is substantially louder decibel. Like on job sites we have ear protection. We don't have ear protection in the fab shop. There's nothing there that would need ear protection. I would say the loudest thing would be our high definition plasma table, which
So in the shop itself, you do not require ear protection?
No, the loudest machine is the high def plasma table, and it could be running. We could have this conversation like this. So
Okay.
There's nothing like that. And we intend on conditioning the space, so we don't really work with the doors open. You will stand outside the building 10 feet away from it. You'll hear the highway. You won't hear what we're doing inside.
Okay. Sounds good. Thanks for the answer, sir.
All right, any other comments or questions?
The only thing I might interject is, once you make it a zoning designation, you open up the door for other uses inside that zoning designation. And that's, something that I think you have to take into consideration sometimes when you're looking at his use may not be negatively impacting the neighbors, but the next one that moves in next to him under the same zoning designation, well, now there's M1 here, how can you deny me to have compact and contiguous M1? Well, they could be. So I mean, it's just something that we have to consider when we're looking at this. And again, to his defense, the highway noise is very, very loud, and so trying to make an audible argument may not be the best argument based off the proximity of this. It just, I don't know, is a parcel, I can't even remember what the size of it was, 12.6 acres, is an M1 light manufacturing appropriate in that location? And maybe it is. Its proximity to the highway would indicate, I think, that it would be, but its access back onto that highway is, I guess it's not too far of a stretch, but I don't know, this is a tough one for me. Melissa, do you have a comment?
I don't think I even thought of a concern for noise, because I live where I can hear the highway, but it's like anything else. You live nearby an airport, cattle, you get used to the noise and you don't hear it.
Sure.
So I wasn't so concerned about that. I guess, my concern is what Brad's saying and what was brought up is once it's rezoned, then anything is possible, so that is really my main concern, because now that opens up the agricultural area and some residential area out there to whatever. I would like to say but is not a good word to end a sentence with, but I do want to commend the commissioners on the decision they made, because even though it's not basically in my backyard, turning down the lithium battery storage operation, because that is an area I drive through quite frequently. So I do want to commend you for your decision on that one. I do agree that the diesel shop that's to the south of me now probably would have more of the large semi-truck type coming through there than probably this business would have. But then now to the northeast of me, what used to be a small body shop, towing facility, has now basically turned into a salvage yard. And I don't know how that can grow and continue not being an issue. One other comment I want to make that I don't. So I don't know enough about. My other question was, so you go out to sites and you scrap this metal, then how is it stored on the facility that you're going to be working on? Is that an outdoor open storage area where you bring in the scrap metal, or?
The scrap metal is in like a 40-yard bin, so it's not really visible from the...
So it's an enclosed, kind of a semi-enclosed area?
Yeah, and then a truck comes and picks the dumpster up, you know. I mean, my only comments are like, you know, as a business owner, if not here, then where? You know, it's literally the highway, and I respect whatever decision you guys make, but as a business owner, you know, I knew that I was going to have to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy property, and I've looked all over. I've been in this business since I was 27 years old, and, you know, it's time to build a building, and I'll build it somewhere. But, you know, you guys talk about needing more money for the county. I know how much more taxes I'm going to pay. You know, I know that I'm going to buy $2 million worth of materials and sales tax goods into this county. I know that the assessor's value goes up, and as a business owner and a citizen of Christian County, I just, you know, it's like I'm already paying it to Greene County. Why not bring it here? Why not provide more money, more jobs, more businesses to build the roads that you guys need to build? You know, because I mean, I've listened about the lack of funding, and that's the world we live in. But I'm going to fab steel somewhere, you know, and I own property in Webster County and Greene County. And I would rather it be in Christian County. I'd rather sell the other properties. And again, I respect whatever decision you guys make, but from the outside looking in, you know, I would rather be off the highway. The access is, you know, driving across the Selmore Bridge is not an issue. Like if I was on the other side of Selmore, what's the difference? It's, you know, I own the 120 acres completely surrounding this, and, you know, we live there, like we homeschool there, that's where we're going to live, and we go to church here. And so it's just my thing is like, as a business owner, if not off the highway, then where? I can't get any closer to the highway. You know, I can throw a baseball and hit the highway. It's like Tracker Marine, you know, they fabricate boats there that are off the highway. That's out of respect to the citizens that business owners like me spend the money that we spend to get as close to the highway as we possibly can. We're trying to limit it as much as possible. And I myself am going to live there. You know, I mean, we literally remodeled the house, and we have a plan to build a pond out there. You know, a 7-acre pond. That's part of the civil engineering that goes with the building and everything. So I mean, it's just one of the things. I mean, I understand whatever you guys do. I totally respect. You know, and I'll live through either way. But I don't know what else as a business owner. At some level, it's business versus no business. It's like, I can't do anything else other than get literally adjacent the highway. You know.
Okay. Any other comments?
I will say from my perspective, Mr. Morris, that as I often do on these matters, I really give high regard in my thinking to the work of the planning and zoning. We had 7 people vote yes on that, 1 no, and so unless in my thinking I find something that I feel like they have egregiously missed something and they need to look at that again or whatever, I don't see that on this particular one. So my leaning at this moment in time would be toward approving this on the basis of the recommendation from our planning and zoning people who are charged with that responsibility.
Okay. We've got a motion. Is that a motion?
You got anything else?
Discussion?
No, you know, it's one of those things that it's emotional, you know. I think following the planning and zoning laws, it fits. There are other properties out there, you know, the storage facility, which I don't like, I don't care for, you know, that's being built to the south. You have these things, and we have progress, and progress is going to happen if you're not living or dying. So respect his comments, at the same time trying to protect our citizens that are here, and put yourself in a position to avoid negative future impacts that may come once you start zoning that could creep into things that are less desirable. The convenience of being able to put your business next to your home, I fully understand that. I live that every day. I'm glad this is in the zoning change versus a conditional use permit, because I know what my answer would be then.
Well, it'd be simple for you,
It would be
wouldn't it,
simple
Mr.
for me
Jackson?
then.
Yeah.
But, you know, I think it's just, it's an emotionally charged issue, and I try not to make decisions based off emotions. So, the Planning and Zoning Commission has done their due diligence. I'm not sure what the objection of the one was to it.
It was an abstention. No, that was the last one. I think this one.
You had a 711 vote count.
I think they
So it
came in
was-
late. I think they came in late and didn't vote.
Yeah, your explanation sheet shows a 711. Unless you're counting a nay.
There's only 8 people.
That's what I was getting ready to say. So it's a 7-0 vote. One person abstained.
Yeah.
Your abstention doesn't count either direction.
Yeah, it
So
was
it's a
6-1.
7-0. Say again.
It was, the vote was 6-1 with one abstained.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute.
So now our,
Says the vote is 7 aye to 1 nay and 1 abstaining. So that's a misprint?
That would be a misprint. There's only 8 people on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
but we don't know what.
7-0, and the one that abstained was not there when it started.
Yes.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
That makes that difference there. And yes, and of course, the abstention doesn't count as a yay or a nay. Should not be. Okay.
Mr.
All right.
Miranda,
See, I
do
didn't
you-
change mine. I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and grant the request for rezoning as presented by our Planning and Zoning Department.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the motion.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 We pass it 3-0. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Scott.
Okay, we've got one last case.
Yes. Yes. Okay, the last case is case number 2024-0274. The applicant is Lance Martin. Their current zoning is A1 agricultural. They are requesting a zoning change to R1 suburban residence. The location of this property is 954 West Itasca Road, Nixa. The surrounding land uses here are single-family residential, agricultural, and several platted subdivisions in the area. The surrounding zonings are the city of Nixa directly to the east, are R1, A1, R1, AR, so a big mix of residential and agricultural zonings. And then everything to the east in Nixa is it's a PUD under them, but it's directly east is residential uses. The applicant is proposing a change in the zoning classification for about a 30-acre tract in the county to R1 to be lawfully utilized and developed for a future primary use that would be acceptable in that zoning district. The letter of intent provided by the applicant provides the potential for platting a subdivision on the property and finishing Itasca out to end in a cul-de-sac, and also access any new lots that would be created in that process. Background and history on the site: the property being considered was recently lot line adjusted and set up for the rezoning and potential future platting. The property has historically been used for agricultural purposes and single-family residential. A permit was pulled for the house that's there in 2017, and this year a permit was pulled for a below-ground pool on site. Our land use plan does show this as in Tier 1 of the urban service area with the city of Nixa. Their future land use map does show this as appropriate for residential uses. We did submit a USA request to them, and they did reply back. They stated in that reply that there was potential to annex and utilities could potentially be provided, but the city would not be making any push or requirement to do that, and that there really is not a particular advantageous situation here for them to bring this into the city at this time or increase development for them in this area. As far as compatibility goes, again, it's around other single-family residentially platted subdivisions and other residential uses. The property does lie at the end of Itasca Road, basically where the pavement ends. No specific provisions for landscaping, buffering, or building designs at this time. As far as access, again, it does fall at the very end of Itasca. It does have an existing approach for the house that's there. It does lie in the county's Common 2 Road District, so any new request for access or any new improvements or if this was to be platted or subdivided in the future, that would all be worked through the Highway Department, the Planning Department's offices, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval if a plat was presented. Utility services, there's nothing directly available to this site. You do have a map a couple of slides back, or next slide here, that does show the information I have on Nixa's water and sewer line. And as they stated, there's potential for availability there, but there would have to be a little bit of build out and working together with the subdivision to the east to get that across into where this property is. At this time, there doesn't really seem to be any interest in going down that route, but there is a possibility. I mean, it does seem to be available. So as I said, the next slide just shows the kind of water and sewer lines. So the red and orange lines are showing the water lines, and the kind of light, limey green lines are showing the sewer lines that are in that neighborhood. As far as stormwater and groundwater impacts, there's none expected due to rezoning. Obviously, that would be taken into consideration if a plat was presented in the future. And there are no mapped sinkholes or floodplains on this property. As far as traffic impacts go, there's really none expected just due to the rezoning. If a proposed major subdivision was to come through, this would be a potential benefit in adding a cul-de-sac to the end of Itasca where it currently does not have one. It just dead ends. And potential improvements to Itasca as well. Public comment. The applicant spoke to their intent to pave out Itasca Road, in that in a cul-de-sac, and add some new residential lots to the area. There were 4 others in attendance that generally spoke to the narrowness of the existing portions of Itasca, a blind spot where Gregg and Itasca meet, environmental concerns of the addition of septic systems with new lots, and then discontinuity between the existing uses and the proposed use, and then the potential availability of utilities from the city that could provide a denser development than what maybe is currently being looked at or considered. So at that October 21st, the Planning and Zoning Commission heard the facts of the case as well as the public input that was given, and after consideration of all of that, forwarded a unanimous recommendation of approval of this request. And that's all I've got on that one. I can take any questions you guys have.
A question that I had twice or maybe 3 times in this, it says the applicant has proposed paving Itasca out and adding a cul-de-sac to the end of the road. What does paving Itasca out mean?
So if they were to add new lots or propose a major subdivision,
Right.
they would absolutely be required to pave out the portion of the road that they would be adding for those lots. So basically from the end of Itasca as it exists to wherever the cul-de-sac would be.
So paving Itasca out does not take into consideration the current Itasca?
No, not necessarily. That would be a decision that between kind of staff and the facts of what they're proposing, the additional houses or impact that they're giving to Itasca through that, and then the Planning and Zoning Commission's ultimate decision on approval of that, how that would look. Yeah, and a traffic study would be required in that. And then ultimately, if any kind of road considerations were made or done, that would end up in front of you guys as well.
Now say that again, because my understanding was that if we approve the zoning thing, we're done with that.
So the major subdivision process does not come back before this board.
Okay.
But the building of new roads or infrastructure, whether kept private or public, the intent in our code is for that to come back to this board to be accepted.
But would that still affect the current Itasca Road?
If there was a variance requested, yes.
If there was a variance?
If there was a variance requested by the owner/developer, yes, it would. If they were to simply widen it out, it's just a highway department inspection to make sure it meets standard. The new one, though, yes, it would have to be a new conveyance of right-of-way, or they would have to request for it to remain private, but that would come back in front of you.
Okay. I felt like in looking at this, gentleman, that I find virtually no reason to deny the zoning request. It's an area where there's homes and so forth. I am concerned on behalf of the homeowners that are out there because a 14-foot road is a 14-foot road, and I've been on it myself, and it is not built to handle much traffic without getting off into the grass and so forth. So my concern here is that if we approve the zoning request, which honestly is my inclination, I would sure like to know that our planning and zoning people and whomever, road department and so forth, would put some pretty stringent requirements on at that point once they really do open that up as a subdivision, especially major subdivision, on that. But that's kind of out of our control. Once we've done the rezoning, that becomes somebody else's responsibility. But I go on record as saying I don't think that road is suitable to carry any more traffic than it has. But I talked to Ms. Beatles and understand that it is possible that rather than building it out to a 24-foot road, you could go to 20, and that's suitable for vehicular traffic both directions. So something like that sounds very good to me. It's just that I feel a little bit left out of that process, and I'm not complaining about that. I don't need any more processes. But Miranda, anything to add to that?
That width request would have to come from the owner-developer as a variance, and that would come back before you. So the baseline improvements, if so issued by the P&Z board, would be from Gregg Road all the way to the end, including the new improvements, would be 24 feet wide of hot mix. That's the baseline. So anything requested past that would have to come back before you for your approval. Any variance from our county standards comes back before the commission.
So, moving this to an R1, if what's the maximum lot that can be put there?
So currently, without utilities, the minimum lot size would be 3 acres. So if he was to exercise that, he would be looking at an absolute max of 10, but he would have some DNR things to work through that might make that bigger. So most people will do 6 3s and then like some 5s or something in there. So realistically, you're probably looking at 7, 8 at the high end.
But that's in a scenario where the proposal is brought to the P&Z Commission as a preliminary plat, at which time the county has control over making sure that the improvements required are made, versus not proposing them.
Yeah, but that major subdivision will then force the developer to make the improvements to Itasca, which are needed.
Including the existing attachments? I mean, existing Itasca, because I keep coming back to that.
Potentially.
The P&Z board would have to make that decision. So we can't say yes right here.
Right.
But the potential for the P&Z board to make that requirement would then exist.
So certainly the new part, the existing road, that may be a cooperative project between the developer and the county.
Wow.
I would just like to say that, so those 2 subdivisions, if I remember correctly, that the plats were recorded in the late 90s, early 2000s. Our road standard at that time was 20 feet wide. So if with a cul-de-sac, if that road would have been built to standard back then, we might not be in this situation.
Gotcha.
And that portion of that Itasca road is part of an existing plat, and it was never constructed.
Yeah, I'm sitting here looking at, do we even know if the county has proper right-of-ways through the existing Itasca from Gregg Road in towards this property?
So by statute, we have a 30-foot minimum. We cannot have less than 30 feet. I've been researching some of the warranty deeds for the properties that are attached there. And I don't have anything that specifically says Itasca, but I do have some surveys with some points listed out that show that as being 40 feet. However, it's a 14-foot wide road right now. So 14 even sitting at a minimum of 30. There is space. However, there are some utility poles that are fairly close to the road on the south side, and then I know at least one property owner on the north side has intentionally planted some trees as a screen. So we have to see where that lies. But if we're just looking at the lines, they have space.
The topography of this 30 acres flat, I mean, I don't see any contour lines here, so I'm just trying to figure out the potential of having a headache with the city of Nixa, if the topography is leaning down towards you got stormwater potential issues. I'm really surprised the developer, and I don't know if they're in attendance today, but you're the developer, and you have no desire to, you're the owner of the property. You have no desire to tie into the city of Nixa?
Not right now.
For more density?
Not right now, because like you said, it would be kind of a process to go through.
Yeah.
I guess that option's not off the table, though.
Well, I'm just looking at
the
big
Itasca
picture.
Road option. Either go through Kelby Creek or, go Itasca Road. Just depends if it was a city neighborhood or a county neighborhood.
Yeah, I think either way,
I could help out.
Regardless of which side you're on, you're going to run into issues. I'm going to assure that Kelby Creek's not going to want another subdivision tied into their transportation.
Right.
Or you've got the transportation issue on the other side of the property.
Exactly.
But you have the potential to bring on 9 wells and 9 septic systems versus tying to a established system that's here, and I don't know if that's advantageous to take on that battle of being so close to water and sewer.
And when I bought the property probably 20 years ago, after the developer sold it, that didn't finish it out, my intent was just to kind of stay there. So there's been several homes built down Itasca Road, so I watched the development come my way too. You know, so I'm in the same boat as everybody else. I realize that road's an issue, and it's going to be an issue till it's fixed.
There was a comment made that maybe your property has access to the north that would, to where you could put a road that would go up to Cathay or whatever that other street is. Is that a realistic thing? And I'll follow up by this, saying that my understanding, as I was talking about that even if you did, it would still have to tee onto Itasca before turning back to the east, so you wouldn't get away from the connection with Itasca. But is any thought to a different egress or ingress there?
The county was fine with it. If we went any further, I would be fine with going that route. And then we'll have a whole other group of people not wanting to go that way. So,
Sure. But that right of way is actually on the plat for Autumn Ridge Estates as well.
Say what?
That, what you're speaking to, is part of the plat for Autumn Ridge Estates that was never constructed.
Right.
And I believe, Mr. Martin, weren't you a part of that development?
I was.
Okay.
I had bought my partners out when the crash hit. They bailed out. I bought what was left. So I've had that for quite some time. Trying to figure out what to do with it.
There's a comment back here.
Yes, is there any way of postponing the rezoning until the task is resolved? Until someone makes a decision what's going to happen to Itasca? I live on Itasca, on Gregg, at the corner.
Right.
It's a very dangerous intersection and a very narrow road. And my property would be involved, either that or on the north side where there's a row of oak trees.
And I don't know, Ms. Miranda, do you know the answer to that question, or you gentlemen? Does it have to, can you,
I think
for lack of a better word, hold hostage a zoning request? And will the necessary people even take action on what would have to act to Itasca unless that is rezoned? You know what I'm saying? It's a cart and the horse thing here.
Sure.
I don't think you can move to the part where you require anything to be done to the road until the zoning is approved.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It triggers the second half of the
We
phase 2.
have no idea what you want to do until you have a plan laid in front of you. But once that plan's laid in front of you and you make your decision, then we'll know whether or not it's building out a road or...
Sure, but he can't do that till he gets his rezoning.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. I mean, the law states the zoning must be in place before we really know what the use is. And that's one of my struggles. It's always been one of my struggles because everybody wants to know what the final use is.
All right.
But that doesn't, in the sequence of events, that doesn't take place until the zoning is put in place.
Right. I don't have a problem with that because I realize the road's going to be an issue. Even if you guys approve and I get everything through, I'm going to be selling high-end houses if I do develop it. That road's not going to be acceptable for probably what I want to do anyway, so I don't have a problem with whatever you guys decide. Whatever makes the road better if we go that way. Because I've traveled it for over 20 years, I know what it is. There's been one improvement on that road in 20 years, and that was me giving the county easement to make the little turnaround so we could get all the mailboxes down the road rather than have them on Gregg Road. So that's really been the only improvement on that road ever since that I know of. I've been there, so I don't have a problem with whatever you guys decide. But we do need to get Itasca fixed if that's going to be our access.
Yeah, if you're building $1 million home in there, they're not going to want to travel down a small narrow roadway. I mean, it's not going to be a selling point.
Or if we need to go to the north into that other neighborhood. Yeah,
You know, I'll make a comment. I started off the meeting when I talked about some of the issues we have with seeing what goes on in the city of Ozark and not having development, the road infrastructure already done before we build things. I think this is a good test case, and I like your idea, and I think you should have the right to do what you're going to do on your land. However, this is just one of many cases we're going to have like this in this county. As we continue to expand out and people are wanting, they moved out because they didn't want all these neighbors and they didn't want all this traffic. But unfortunately, Itasca, because I've had my wife drive, I can't drive right now, but I had my wife drive me out there again, because I've been over to that road several times, and I looked at it, and it is too narrow, and yeah, I can't imagine somebody building $1 million home and taking a chance of their wife and kids getting hit head on with more increased traffic and things like that. So whatever we do is going to be a very important decision, and I'm not sure how to make it. I do remember that we had a great discussion with Miranda in our office yesterday, because in some cases, if we pass it, we have some strengths and things that we can kind of insist on and stuff like that. If we don't pass it, he's still going to be able to do some things.
The zoning he has right now, I kind of talked to Scott this morning, he's able to develop it now. We did the math during that meeting, and I can't remember the exact numbers, but the rezoning allows him, I believe, to have in total 3 more lots than he would with the existing. I just can't remember if the split was 5 and 8 or 6 and 9 or 4 and 7. But he can still develop it now. And at that point, it wouldn't come back before P&Z. It wouldn't come before commission other than possibly accepting the new road. But again, not speaking for the board, but some of the questions that went around the board right before the vote was asking if they approve the rezoning at the cost of having 3 additional lots, would then give the P&Z board the power to require additional improvements. So I don't think it was if the board was not listening to the crowd. I think they were actually trying to be able to do the things that the folks that come in wanted. It was just at the cost of the approval.
Miranda, do you see a way forward on this? You've got a good mind. Talk to us.
I mean, as far as the rezoning goes, I think it conforms to everything around it.
Right.
And then I think allowing the board to make the requirements that address some of the things that Commissioner Morris has been talking about having the infrastructure there, specifically the roadway infrastructure, we'd be able to at least fix this one, possibly, if the board agrees to make that a condition of the approval. Not condition, sorry, I didn't mean to say condition or anything.
Dirty word.
But one of the requirements of the approval. So, and I think that creates the situation. It addresses the width of the road. Now, there's still going to be the issue with the site distance coming out onto Gregg. There's a hill to the north, and other than cutting down Gregg, there's not much you can do about that particular thing, but I don't think that lies with the owner, the developer. I'm not sure that that's his issue.
Right.
But as far as once you're on Itasca, having the appropriate width for 2 passing vehicles, I think that could be accomplished. I think that would be great.
Well, I almost want to state, and I think there's a gentleman in the back that wants to make a comment, but based off of current revenues, necessity for improvements to roadways, access to capital to make improvements to roadways, the fastest way to get Itasca fixed to meet the requirements of a lot of the neighbors in the community may be by granting, or probably could be by granting the zoning designation to allow the developer to build and make those improvements. When is Itasca on, where is Itasca on our list to address?
I can try to find that while you guys continue to talk. But yeah, I mean, and that's the thing I constantly say in these items. We as a highway department cannot follow development. So we have index values for all of the roads in the county, which is what you were asking for Itasca. We could be getting ready to pave a road that we say is a 4 because of all the deficiencies that road has. I don't want to drop that one because someone's building a house over here.
Right.
That's not fair.
We can't do that.
So yes, if we're doing what we're supposed to do as the highway department and taking care of these low-ranked roads and these roads where people are almost having to use four-wheel drive to get home, and at the same time making sure that development covers the impacts that they're making. Some developments won't create an impact, right? So you don't have to require anything, but some do. If we're able to have the teeth to require that, then that helps us keep our whole system above board, and I think that's great.
Right.
Yeah. Sir, did you have a comment?
I did. I live at the property immediately adjacent to the land that's in question. I don't necessarily have an issue with the development itself. Obviously, I don't like the aspect of additional traffic, all of those things. The width of Itasca is no doubt a question mark. One of my largest concerns probably is the idea of expanding the road, especially going from a current 14-foot road to a 24-foot road if necessary. If you look at the aspects both south and north of Itasca, when you go to the south, you're coming immediately into the landowner's property, obviously through the land that would be easement already, and I do understand that. That's vastly different for me that sits back 50, 60 feet versus Mr. Toe town that sits probably 25 foot off of the road from that to the front of his garage. So obviously that's going to vary greatly. When you get to the north side of Itasca, and unlike I think Miranda mentioned, there was the owner there who has 25 acres, owns basically from Greg all the way back to approximately where the land in question is. That was not, I guess, planted for screening. We're talking probably 50 to 60 foot oak trees that if you took some of the easement and went out 5 or 6 feet to the north of Itasca, you're taking out the entire agricultural portion of that, which is large trees that have been there for an extended period of time. So it completely changes the, I guess, environment of the field, the agricultural aspect of it, and potentially takes down a whole lot of trees in an effort to expand the road. So those are probably my concerns. I don't necessarily have an issue with the rezoning itself, but more the impact. Anytime you talk about separation of approving something for a subdivision without having, as Miranda was mentioning, the aspect of the roads having to be completed, upgraded, and resolved in order to make the future development work, it becomes a question mark of how you do that in a way that's conducive for both the current residents. Obviously, the expansion of the subdivision will take care of problems. So that would be my only concern.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr.
We stalled.
Yeah.
Did you come up with a number?
Yeah, so I have Itasca right now as a 7. Now keep in mind that's a county 7 out of 10. And the 3 points that have been taken off of that are for narrowness.
Say that last sentence again.
The 3 points that have been taken off of that 10 are for narrowness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for anybody watching, the lower the number, the worse the condition. The higher number, the better the condition. So it's setting at a 7, and the reason it's a 7 is because of its width.
It doesn't look like we have any significant horizontal cracking. We don't have any significant depressions. It's just narrow, and it's been a while since it's been chip and sealed.
I was going to say it's more of a chip and seal road. That would be one of the concerns down the line is you get into heavy equipment of building 7 to 10 additional homes down that road. That traffic has much more impact to a chip and seal road than you would an asphalt road, I would think. So, at least from my experience and other things, but not in specific situations.
Looking at this as the owner and developer, if I was going to make the improvements from Gregg Road all the way down to Itasca, plus do county spec road into my property, that's not feasible. I mean, there's not that much money to be made at the end, I don't think, according to my figures. And if that be the case, I would recommend you guys just deny me and leave me at ag. And I can do my 3 tracks if I want to do those and not have to spend all the money. Because just that addition of Itasca is going to be a lot of money. Plus, I'm still pulling out on a bad area, a bad hill, without taking that hill down. It's always going to be that way. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. It's just not feasible to spend all that money. There wouldn't be anything left at the end for all the money and time. Maybe I just keep it sell it in a 20-acre tract. I don't know. I'll deal with that later. The reason this all started is we wanted to take our home and sell it with the north side of our property. And this was kind of the way I was guided to do this, in order to sell our home and still have some options on what I have left, because the people that want to buy ours don't want all of it. So, that being said, I think my best option would just be leave it in ag and see what Scott and I can talk about and the county can talk about from there. I mean, I hate to waste your time, but just that cost, I just don't think it's ever going to happen.
I certainly appreciate that, and I appreciate your attitude. So I'd
That's
be
just a
ready,
huge
I'd be
cost.
ready to make a motion that we deny the rezoning request.
I would second that based off the comments of the property owner.
Yes.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks to all of you. Appreciate it.
Probably an honest request.
We will.